Speaking of, we're pretty pumped to have this conversation today. I think it's like we've talked about this very informally in many instances, but it's like bringing it in formally. And I don't know. I'm excited to learn from it. I think you have a lot of cool things to share today about fire. We're talking about fire and the impact it had on humankind and how to maybe get back to that as far as the performance and the way in which it kind of propelled our species. So yeah, it's cool, dude. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, something about humans, obviously, maybe especially males, are kind of obsessed with fire. I think maybe one out of every 5 males, this is a total random guess, is kind of a pyromaniac, given
Totally.
they're young. But yeah, pyromaniacs, it's a real thing. And there has to be something to our fascination with fire, as we're probably going to see in each of these conversations. We're going to be able to find a human behavior or characteristic and then identify something in our evolutionary history that says, oh, that might be why this characteristic got passed down the chain, right? That seems, I mean, that has brought so much enlightenment to my understanding of the world, is being able to look at who I am and who humans are around me and say, okay, take them out of this weird technosphere. I love that word. Technosphere that we live in, and say, if you put them in a tribe of 100, in a hunter-gatherer, or even a small ag society, what would those behaviors look like? And you're like, oh, that makes sense how that would be there in that context. But those personality characteristics in our context, where we sleep in, we stay up late, we eat junk food, we work a 9 to 5 in a cubicle, things go haywire. And it's like, why would you have this obsession with this particular thing, or have this ultra hostile or passive aggressive personality in this context? It doesn't make any sense. But in the evolutionary context, it tends to. So I hope that in a lot of these episodes, we can get into that. And no, we are not anthropologists, but we enjoy talking about it, and we probably will do a better job of using layman terminology than an anthropologist would. Something.
Yep, to get the message to the people. Yeah, I mean, speaking of pyromaniac, I feel like being around the Boy Scouts growing up, and I definitely wasn't, in the mountains all the time around the fire, but there was maybe 1 or 2 times we'd be around the campfire, and I just remember being fascinated, putting little twigs in there, burning them, just seeing the embers and the smoke that would come off of it and the sparks crackling off the bonfire. Oh my goodness, man. Like, I've always been fascinated with it. And, oh, nice.
This is trout on a campfire.
That's actually your drink. It's not a candle. Just a cauldron.
It's so alcoholic, it just stays there.
But yeah, anyway, I'm excited to I guess you've got a lot of things prepared on kind of the origins of the relationship between humans and fire. We've got a whole lot of notes, so if you see us looking off screen, it's not because we're getting that "hey, you up" text. It's because we might be getting that text.
Mm-hmm.
But but no, we're just referencing some notes. I think a lot of people, like, I've seen some YouTube clips of reviews on certain things that I'm interested in, and someone was saying, "Oh, sorry, I got to reference my notes real quick." I'm like, "Why are you sorry, dude? Like,
yeah."
This should be about content. Like, please provide the best content possible. Don't worry about the performance. Yeah, like, come on. Like, we're not professional. You can obviously tell. Yeah, well. So it doesn't matter. And even if it sounds like we're reading off things, like we prepared it, it's about the content. Like, yeah, we obviously don't want it to be dry, but anyway.
We're going to talk about fire, relationship with humans and our evolution. Maybe we're going to talk about the circadian rhythm and I'm going to try and explain what that is for anybody who has only heard of it in passing or doesn't know much about it.
Kind of a buzzword.
Yeah.
Last few years.
And we might talk a little bit about just what the role of something like fire could play in the modern context with our family, our community, whether that is literally with fire or something that could represent what fire used to for us.
Yeah, and so, you actually have an interesting theory. I think you've created yourself, maybe based on other things, but I hope that you can share that too. The fire exposure theory is more about what you're taking out than what you're putting in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love for you to expand on that too. But yeah, take us back to the roots, man. Let's hear it.
Okay, so I just looked up a couple of dates. I had been watching. I'm really interested in this stuff. So I've kind of been learning about some of this stuff just to pass the time, which is so funny that I didn't like my science class in high school, dude, because we watched Mythbusters every day. The guy would plug in Mythbusters and we just sit there in the dark for an hour. And I was like, this sucks. And now I'm just fascinated by this stuff. And so that shows you what education and an appropriate diagnosis of a learning disorder might do for you.
There you go.
So first and foremost, I was learning about the time frame of when human beings began to interact with, harness, and then be able to recreate fire. This is their best guess. We don't have much of a fossil record, right? We're going to know more. That is the beautiful thing about this, is there are so many fossils out there to be found. There's so much science to be dug up and understood. This is not the pinnacle of what we are going to understand about human beings in our history. And so that is really exciting. Hopefully we can continue to follow this and it can be part of our lives, understanding who we are and where we're going based on, the archaeologic or paleontologic record. So first of all, I think what I had read was that Homo I can't even say the word erectus. I'm getting all crazy. Homo erectus and Homo habilis begin to harness fire. This is probably after a lightning strike somewhere. There's a fire going, and they went and grabbed onto it. And after enough time, they probably, and you've watched the show alone, you've seen survival stories, they keep a fire going for as long as they possibly can because they're so good to create. And whatever ancestral being we had, as disconnected as it is from the modern human being, they were grabbing onto that fire and they were using it. And there is evidence of this. I think it was China and Kenya. They have the earliest sites, which were between like 2.4 million years to 700,000 years ago, guessing around 1.4 was where most of these fragments, and it's just like charred bone that obviously had to do with human
like animal
activity.
bone,
right? Animal bone that had been broken open and burnt, and then they found
boiling marrow.
Yeah, and then they found fire pits by Homo erectus. Gosh dang it. And early Homo heidelbergensis around 400,000 to 200,000 years ago. And this is suggesting that they were repeatedly cooking things at these sites. And that implies that they were able to reignite fire. Because, maybe you could maintain a fire in this one spot and make several cooks over and over. But it makes more sense that from this time period, based on I just want to make sure I'm not missing something. Oh, yeah. So they had like a really ashen, burnt up fire pit. And one of them is in Israel specifically. I'm seeing Israel and other parts of Europe. But the Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, the sites get even clearer. But even at those sites 200 to 400,000 years ago, they have stones. They have hammer tools. They have flint stones that would have been That's where the name Flintstone comes from. The show.
Whoa.
What? They had Flintstones.
Flintstones. The Flintstones.
that they used, which is so funny. They had been, obviously, you have a bunch of Flintstones there, a bunch of bone fragments, fire pit. 200 to 400,000 years ago, they were making fire, cooking food. And so what this means is, what this meant to them was they were able to cook and preserve food. Cooking food, like boiling vegetables, takes a lot of the legwork out of your mouth and body in starting the digestive process. It's doing it outside of your body. So you're softening up the nutrients. You're not having to chew. Big
Can
animals,
consume
like
more.
apes or cows and horses, they are burning a lot of calories just chewing. And then the digestive process, they're burning so many calories, breaking it down. But if we can get that accelerated by cooking, that's a major time advantage. Also, you're able to eat foods that aren't quite as fresh by cooking, right? You have to pull meat straight off the animal. If
it's going to spoil.
But if you can
I plug in here?
Buffalo. Yeah.
Sorry. Well, just to backtrack a little bit as far as the, animals, like we recently took a trip to an elk herd winter range, and we were learning about the stomach system of an elk, and it's kind of similar to a cattle, and how they like chew their cud, and you can see them chew their cud. But I've never been this close to elk before. I'm usually seeing them from 15, 1,800 yards away through spotting scope.
It's a sweet nickname.
Good. Yeah, dude.
Sorry, keep going.
Anyway, but basically they'll chew their cud, and then it'll go down and back up, and like it's mixing it, like not to gross too many people out, but it's like it takes a lot to like get that down. So what you're saying with boiling vegetables, or even charring them, or searing meat, or anything like that, like it who knows what the people back then, like how they had to process things, it's not like they just had broccoli where they could, like, I'm sure things were pretty hard to get into an edible form.
Yeah.
So fire really, and then, sorry, you were talking about meat.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Not carrots and apples all over the place. Like,
no, like,
they were eating.
Imagine taking a bush, just like a shrub, like a sage plant, like you've got to eat the base of that,
really, like some really
with teeth,
really tough root. You just got to chew on it because it's got the only thing that has nutrients,
and it's giving you negative calories because it has no calories. And so really, like, take that all in, right? That's what I'm kind of picturing, is not just the meat, but everything. And you probably, I don't know if they figured out, maybe but like the purification of water and stuff, but I don't, probably not. That would be pretty hard.
Really tough guts for a long time.
Yeah. The microbiome. So anyway, you were saying with meat.
So we can eliminate pathogens at later stages of the spoiling process. It doesn't have to be perfectly fresh meat. And you can also cook it and it will last longer, as you travel about. It also probably, as people migrated out of the optimal environment for our ancestors, and they sought out new territories because of competition, the fire making ability probably opened up other food sources as an option to them. Maybe you find a potato plant, and in its raw form, it's like, this is not, that's maybe not the best example, but something along those lines. All of a sudden you can cook that, or you can, beaver, beaver is notoriously full of junk, and you got to cook it or it's going to kill you. Just all the crap in its bloodstream and on its fur. And
beaver fever, y'all.
And so, another good nickname. But yeah, so things like that. And then the other implications of the fire could have been, one, you're staying up past dark. You have extended light hours and hours that you can work and process food. And so you can be hunting during the day, and when the sun goes down, you can start to process your food, and you can also engage socially. It might
Yeah.
draw people in and put a higher selection pressure on communicability, on the ability to, you know, get along with the other people in your community and
Totally.
learn
Well,
to engage socially and make contracts, compromise.
so what I'm on that note, what I'm thinking of is like, as far as I understand, these groups of early humans, like they had to break off and kind of like take a risk on certain areas. Could you imagine being able to find the area in which there was the stones necessary to strike, start a spark and light an ember of tinder and kindling into a fire and all of that, and what that must have done as far as gathering? Maybe you could probably envision there's some sort of like a party, I guess, like, and the people that, have these skills are really good at maybe napping. To be clear, napping, not taking naps, but to like, chip away different rocks to get them in the right shape. It's napping with a K. But, that's how our logo, the Clovis Point, like that was napped. That's the art in which making tools. So there could have been that. Maybe someone was very good at that, and then like the selection of that and passing that along to the seed of the fire, and probably they're bringing in different things. You've got maybe multiple people bringing in different things, and then somebody dies one night because they brought in this thing and they cooked it over the fire, and it happened to be some poisonous substance, and they just died. They're like, when you cook things like different, you cook a jalapeno, right? Whenever I cook a jalapeno, it gets spicier. Like there's an enhancement. So maybe something like that happened. I'm just kind of spitballing, but it's kind of fun to imagine what that all looked like. And you saying that there's those fire pits, evidence of that. It would just be so cool to see all the interaction and the movement around that and the gathering around that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And this is a really hard thing for modern human beings, including you and I, who have probably spent a little bit more time than the average person thinking about it. But it's a really hard thing if you come from a line of creationist thinking alone, like purely creationist. We came from the creation 6,000 years ago, literally, rather than a figurative 6,000. Anyway, if you have had that mode of thinking your whole life, and now we're starting to say that, oh yeah, over 50,000 years, people went from finding fire in the forest, harnessing it. And by people, obviously I mean something like a modern human being, pretty similar, not exactly, but pretty similar. And they go from harnessing fire, using it, to being able to recreate it. And that just, pun intended, sparks this catapulting into new opportunities.
Yeah.
New food sources, new territories, new selection pressures, right? Being around the fire late at night, communicating, processing food, having to engage more physically, intimately, conversationally. All those pressures turn us into a more social creature, maybe, than what we were before. And then all of a sudden, maybe if you're a group of 10, 15 things in a little family, primates or primate-like creatures in a little family, and you're wandering around hunting and surviving and finding fruit, but then you learn that you can harness fire. Maybe that puts a pressure on having a larger group. So more people can be gathering food, and a smaller number of people can be protecting and fueling a fire, keeping it alive, because that is as important as being able to go gather food, is being able to process it. That may be more important. If you can kill a lion, then it's going to spoil. If you can kill a wildebeest, and it's going to spoil in a day and a half in the hot sun, made like you can eat to your full, and then it's over for human beings or Homo habilis or whatever. But if you can get that back and process it, think of what a massive advantage that is. for you being able to save calories, not having to hunt every day. It's kind of a
You've
cool
got
thing.
so many thoughts coming, like you've just sparked so many thoughts coming through my head. Some of which, because I obviously know kind of what we're going to talk about today, I'll touch base later. But man, yeah, that was really good. Sorry, I've got to write this down to talk about it later, probably on our last call portion.
Okay. Let's see if there's anything else.
Can you talk more about kind of like maybe the bullet list of what are the benefits of humans? I'll start off with one. I just read like a study from I believe it was the Smithsonian magazine. There was an article called "Fire Good: Make Human Inspiration Happen" by Thomas Wynn. I thought it was a good article. One thing that I thought was very interesting was the thought in which fire, like we kind of alluded to before, especially with meat. I mean, that's the food of choice, and I mean, tale as told as time. Like to this day, I know there's some people that aren't meat eaters, but like there's a lot of hot topics on carnivore diet and paleo and the benefits of it. So anyway, mentioning that as far as the energy that meat provides, you're able to consume it more. Like imagine you're in a buffet, right? What do you do when you're in a buffet? You just go, all out. You just eat because it's so available. There's nobody. You go ham. Oh, dude, sliced ham in a buffet. But no one's telling you no. It's readily available. But like, imagine that kind of impact to these early humans. They don't have to eat like right after a kill, or I've eaten raw meat before when I'm processing game. I'll throw a few slices in there because I know it's not going to do anything to me.
And you show your friends that you're not afraid. Your kids, right? It's like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah. And
like, that's not.
I get my kids to do it too. No, it's tender and it's cold, but
right.
The warm meat and like the cooking of it and kind of the char around it, it's just so delicious. So like they start eating more and more and more of it, and the calories, they're able to hunt longer. You could assume they're able to grow. These kids, like imagine being raised with fire. These kids are getting nutrients, way more nutrients than they used to, because all the meat isn't spoiling anymore as much. They're able to cook it, or I don't know how old smoking is, but like smoking jerky or whatever. But essentially, the more calories, these good calories, they're like, it really advanced so many things cognitively, physically. Like humans are just starting to roll towards the future. I thought that was the most interesting thing about the benefits of fire towards humans and kind of where we're at now. You want to hit maybe some thoughts on that, or hit us with some different benefits maybe that we haven't talked about?
Well, one thing that I didn't mention, which I didn't even know, but obviously, right? Human beings, we are notorious for being able to live in pretty much any climate, and being able to create heat because we are not well insulated, because we evolved in a very hot place, and we evolved in the last several 100,000 years, we evolved to run down prey and just handle heat very well. But now, because we're so damn good at making tools, and we can make fire, and we can make clothes, and we can conserve heat, it's weird, dude. Humans are so cool. Also, we're causing a lot of problems, and we'll get to that. But
yeah,
it is crazy what we have become. But yeah, so we can move all the way up to the edges of the ice-covered planet and live there, or in the ice-covered planet. We can live there just by making fire and building a little shelter and covering up. And then you go out and you kill something and you eat it, and you go back and you carry chunks and you get warm. And like, obviously we were able to do that. They found a fully frozen, the Iceman. Like, what was he doing living up there? He had fire. That's the only way. The other animals up there, everything's covered in fur and fat like crazy. The skin this thick and fur this thick. And we're just like we're the same thing as we are now. Skin,
Yeah.
dermis and epidermis about a half a centimeter thick. And then it's
Yeah.
a little bit of fat, especially on them who had no fat. That is, fire meant everything. Especially if you left the equator, man, it was everything. So
Yeah.
maybe there's more pyromaniacs as your genetics get further from the equator, right? That probably is a real thing.
Yeah.
We could
That'd
look
be
into
interesting to look at that data. Yeah. And, you're saying they find that human in ice. Did they find many more around it?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't looked into that much, but I mean,
Because
if
it's
you follow
interesting.
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say sometimes, people would say, oh, it's just one, someone wandered off. And I'm like, well, think about it. They traveled around. We'll have a podcast about kind of the explorer's DNA. You brought that kind of to the table. I'm excited to have that one too. But yeah, they were able to move around and bring fire along with them, or start it back up and bring the tools. That's quite cool. It kind of reminds me of Vikings. If you look up the bone structure of Vikings that were in the I don't know, burial grounds.
You mean this bone structure that you're looking at right here?
Well, no, not that one, but because that one. Let me back up a little bit so that you can look at the average height of what a Viking was that's in a burial ground. But all the Vikings, they're not there. They go into the sea, and they, if I understand right, they light their boats on fire and enter Valhalla.
Yeah, the losers.
The people, the people in the ground are the ones that got pillaged. The huge Vikings are in the sea.
Yeah.
Well, in Valhalla, rest in peace. But yeah, if you were to Google what's the size of a Viking, it would say, I think I've seen someone do it, and it says, oh, it's a lot shorter than you think, but it's you're not understanding the whole picture. Same thing there. Oh, you find one person in ice. Oh, there's just one person that just, wandered and got frozen in ice. Well, you're not seeing the whole picture. They were able to travel all the way up there and maybe all the way back, and it was seasonal. Maybe they're hunting a herd, whatever, got to read between the lines.
I mean, how much ice have we dug up too? And there's not that many archaeologists chipping away at ice on the, up in Alaska.
Oh, why would you? Yeah.
But
your house is 72 degrees. Stay inside.
It's pretty nice.
And that's a problem.
But yeah, so, I wanted to throw in one little factoid, and then we should talk about any other studies you've looked at, or we can talk a little bit about the circadian rhythm. But one thing I heard on Joe Rogan's podcast, I call him Joe now that I'm a podcaster.
Yeah.
We're colleagues.
We're part of it.
Yeah, you have an archery shirt on, which is whatever. I'm balding. I'm thinking about getting into jiu-jitsu. But no, so in his podcast with that lady, it's recent, who studied psychedelics. She's really cool. Oh, no. It was mostly about, she's a professor of religion and studied UFOs and alien technology. That was her episode. I'll have to look her name up. I'm sorry, I'm not remembering her name. But really cool conversation. She was a sharp lady. She knew she wanted to be a professor of religion when she was 10. I'm like, okay, you got skills if you know you want to do that when you're 10. But Joe made he made a statement about retching, about wanting to puke, in response to hearing somebody else vomit, and how that is a common phenomenon for human beings. A lot of people cannot help it, but if they hear somebody else retch or dry heave, they will start vomiting themselves. And he talked about how in an evolutionary context, I just thought this was brilliant, dude. Brilliant. I was just so happy. This is the kind of stuff that gets me out of bed, which is so annoying. But he said that in an evolutionary environment, maybe it makes sense that if you hear somebody next to you vomiting that was likely consuming the same material that you're consuming or you had just recently consumed, it's a really good idea to vomit yourself, to get it out,
Oh, yeah.
immediately. And I was just like, of course.
Yeah.
And like, because
there's something going wrong. Yeah.
If you have, that's the thing. If you look at it just simply, human beings were just the way that we were made, and there's no rhyme or reason. Like, that doesn't make any sense that you would start retching when your mom, your brother eats too much spaghetti and soda, that you'd start puking just hearing him vomit in the back of the van. I've seen some vomit in vans, dude, as a kid. But
and spaghetti and soda.
I kind of made that one up. I think I did have a cousin vomit spaghetti in my mom's van.
Oh, there goes our followers. Our one follower.
It was my cousin. He's out. He's like, you ratted me, dude. But anyway, yeah. So just learning that is like, okay, that like makes sense of the world. It just brings so much clarity to why things are happening. Oh, they had an adaptive or an evolutionary benefit in the environment in which we used to live. And so wanting to puke when you hear somebody vomit, it makes so much sense in that old world that we used to live in. And if we're at Chuckarama today and everybody starts hurling, it's probably a good idea to hurl.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah. I mean, especially if you're an early human and you saw that, I don't know, your brother brought a venom sack and boiled it over the water and drank it and he died. You're like, okay, I'm glad I didn't have any of that. So yeah, when you see someone puking, you're like, oh yeah, I don't want to die by this experiment, but I really like experimenting with this food because we're finding some delicious things.
In a selective environment with a selective pressure, anybody who vomited, hearing somebody else vomit up putrid food, they lived because they got it out of their system. Anybody who was fine would not have survived and would not have propagated or passed on their offspring. That's the whole story. If you had the characteristic that made you thrive in that context, you probably got to survive, and your chances of passing on offspring got higher and higher with each group of genes that had all of the right genes going forward. It's not random. It's a highly directed selective pressure toward optimal survival and health, right?
Yeah.
So cool.
Pro vomit. Be pro vomit.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. I had never ever thought about that. I did want to add a couple things that we didn't touch on that I just picked up from the article that Fire Good Make Human Inspiration Happen. I thought it was super interesting. One of them will serve as a wonderful segue into circadian rhythm if you're ready for that. But I think so. I'm reading, fire and time regulation extended the day. Also, allowing them to stay alert. Like, imagine that you're sharing corridors with a short-faced bear. You all don't know what that is. Look it up. Like, you got to know when that thing's coming around. So you have that more alertness for more hours of the night, especially with all these animals. I mean, the animals today, I could imagine back then, is very crepuscular, or meaning they do a lot of feeding and activity in the dark hours of the dawn and the dusk and all of that. Another thing that's interesting is fire and working memory. Fire facilitated a meditative state that improved working memory, which is essential for planning and executing complex tasks. That's interesting. Meditative state. I can get that. I mean, there's studies about the different waves that our brains go in, and from what I understand, I believe it's the theta waves that you experience.
Is that when you lean back as you shoot a jump shot?
Theta waves. Oh, dude, that is a merch idea. Theta wave. Just have a caveman shooting a rock.
Hey, sorry, theta wave. Keep going.
Well, like shower thoughts, right? people have shower thought. I have my best inspiration in the shower. There's a reason for that, because you come out of a sleep and you have, depending on how you alert yourself, if you have a phone right in your face, you're telling your body like it's alpha wave time, like it's ready, like let's go. Got to answer these emails now. But if you kind of progress into it and you wake up to the sun and you have these these theta wave moments, these meditative moments where creativity comes. I can't remember who it was. Listeners out there, if you know, there was a famous person. I want to say it's Edison, but I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. But essentially, if this person got stuck on something, they'd take a nap. They'd wake up, get into these theta waves to like work through it. And so that's what fire facilitated meditative state. Anytime I've been around a fire, I'm not around too many fires in the middle of the day, especially when the sun's out. But when it's later, like you and I have shared very meditative, kind of like mind-opening experiences where we've thought about things like way differently. And so that, I think it kind of inhibits those theta waves. That's interesting. Speaking of like sleep and all of that and theta waves, that article also talks about fire and sleep quality. Fire improved the quality of sleep by enabling more rapid eye movement, REM sleep, which enhances long-term memory and problem-solving skills. If I were sharing corridors with a short-faced beta, I'd want those benefits too. But yeah, go ahead.
And I also wonder, I mean, is it the actual fire? It probably is, and who knows how that evolved. But is it the actual fire inducing more REM sleep, or is it your central nervous system recognizing that throughout hundreds of thousands of years, having a fire next to you has made you less likely to get eaten by a giant cat, a big cat, right? And so your body allows itself to relax more. Your hormone levels are
less cortisol.
A more relaxed and a rebuilding state rather than still kind of on alert as you rest, right? Like a deer. A deer doesn't get the REM sleep. So
okay, so let's say that again, because I think that's really important to the rest of our conversation on this podcast. You're saying, and we all came from these people, right? So their fascination and activities in it can be passed down. The reason why we have fascinations with things isn't any wonder. So what you're saying is, improve REM sleep, it's because, and you're going to talk about this in circadian rhythm, we're more relaxed. We feel safer on the fire. We're more alert, but we're more protected. And we're able to kind of enter into that rest without high spikes of stress, cortisol. So we're able to rest easy, recover how we should be, or which they didn't know, but that recovery is very, very good. Anyway.
Yeah. And so the more you like to have fire at night, the more productive your sleep hours were, which probably led to greater development of your psyche. You learned better. You were more focused during the day. Who knows? I mean, this is a very long process for humans, but I think we're probably onto something, thinking that, those who had a fire next to them at night probably fared better. And I mean, some of them probably caught on fire, but that was a small few. That was a small number compared to those that didn't, that were able to stay warm, didn't freeze at night, and were able to protect themselves from predators who were out looking for them. And so that's a fun thought. So I'll jump into a little bit of information. I'll be more concise than we have been on the circadian rhythm, if you're up for it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Cool. So as I have said in previous episodes, like not that many, we haven't had that many, but I am a PA and I do family medicine, and I see a lot of people for sleep issues, and I hand out, trazodone and Seroquel and talk about magnesium and melatonin and all sorts of crap to help people sleep. And no, I don't give people benzodiazepines. I just am not about it. But for some reason, people love the Seroquel, quetiapine. It's an antipsychotic and it knocks people out. So if you ever need to sleep, and trazodone isn't cutting it, that's the next step. But you will gain a few pounds. So it is a reach, but I try to talk to people in our short visits that I'm supposed to have a lot of about their circadian rhythm. And I try to talk to them about exposure to certain wavelengths of light and what that is doing to their brain and how it might be telling their brain that it's daytime. I'm in this really well lit room. Now, as I'm saying this, I'm like, crap.
Wait, you're not in space right now? You had me fooled.
but I try to talk to them about this and I have some of the anatomy written out, but nobody wants to hear that. So essentially, we get light signals in through the back of our eyes. Some of those signals hit different cells that communicate with a little thing that sits within our hypothalamus that is right above your pituitary gland, and that can affect cells throughout your entire body. That interaction of light through your eyes, and I unfortunately sleep with my eyes a little bit open. I have like a genetic thing. My brother does it. My mom does it. They're cracked open, and I remember going on like a Mormon trek thing. I woke up and kids are all staring at me around the bus, like staring, and they're like, "Were you asleep, dude?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "No, I was just relaxing," because I thought it was so weird. But anyway, we get those signals. It communicates with a part of our brain which produces hormones in accordance to the signals of light we're getting. So the two primary hormones, I think it does a bunch of hormonal effects, but the two primary ones are melatonin, literally, and cortisol.
Yeah.
And so the adrenal.
This is kind of the yin and yang of our day is the cortisol and the melatonin. That's how I kind of understand it. Those two are kind of fighting against each other all day, and they have very good benefits. Both of them do when used properly. Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
And there's one little fact that I just remembered. Well, fact, maybe not principle, that I had learned some time ago that I'll have to confirm. Have to confirm this this reporting or this data. But it talked about how human beings actually, when the sun goes down or when our house gets darkened, we will get a short spike of cortisol right away. And it's like, why would you do that? Isn't it bedtime? But the thought is that it is giving you a burst of energy to prepare yourself to maybe get back to camp, to get back to your habitation, to get back to the cave. And because you don't want to be falling asleep in the field after a day of hunting or a day of gathering or a day of protecting. It's like, okay, the dark's here, danger has increased. I need to be more aware and I need to get to a safe space. And so a lot of us, lights will go off in the house or lights will go down outside. We'll get a little energy boost. And so if you're staring at your iPhone from 6 inches away and the light from your iPhone is closer to that of the sun than the light from a flame, then your brain is thinking, okay, it's bedtime. No. Your brain is thinking, okay, you turn it off, lay down, you lay your head down, and your brain says, okay, time to get back to the cave. Let's, buckle up, body, right? High alert. And so even if you fall asleep, that doesn't mean you don't get a burst of cortisol throughout your system that is inhibiting your progression into those better stages of sleep for improved recovery, etc. So that is we should totally look into this some more so we can give listeners a more accurate representation of this science. But I think that is a really important concept because they tell us try and have your environment mimic the light from the sun. So in your house, in a nursing home, in a care facility, in a school, you should try and have the lighting settings be reflective of what's going on outside. So start dimming the lights when it gets dimmer in your home. things like that. In nursing home facility, the lights really should shift with that of the cycle of the sun and the rotation of the earth. So, sorry.
And you shouldn't do podcasts at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I know. So I do want to plug a researcher who is one of the lead circadian rhythm researchers. His name is Satchin, like Satch, Satchin, Panda, which is cool. I want to say the guy's from India, and he is spitting facts, and he has a bunch of TED Talks on the subject. And I want to say I even actually saw he was interviewed by Huberman.
Can you say who Hugh Huberman is?
Oh yeah, he's a neuroscientist.
Maybe people don't. Okay. Andrew, right?
Yeah, Andrew Huberman. I think he's a neuroscientist. Not sure. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've seen his clips. But anyway, Satchin talks about 6 recommendations to optimize your circadian rhythm. Which, if I back up just a little bit, so in the morning you wake up. Your body says, hey, time to be awake. You get those light signals from the sun, start producing cortisol from your adrenal glands that sit above your kidneys. Cortisol is a stress hormone. It's like, okay, time to go, time to act, right? You're in
time to hunt.
Cortisol's pumping. You get hurt, cortisol goes up, help you recover. Has all these good things, does a lot of important things for your body. Stressed about an assignment, cortisol's up. Stressed about a fight with your partner, cortisol's up. All these things that cortisol is not just a bad thing. It does so many important things for our body, but it's going to lead to obesity. It's going to lead to problems with sleep. It's going to lead to oxidative stress in your body. It's going to lead to heart disease, insulin resistance problems, right?
So to be clear, let me just paint a picture. Maybe there's some visual people out there. XY graph, right? You've got the time you wake up, cortisol is going up. Melatonin's not. It's low. And this is very, very elementary, fundamental. Basically, cortisol is going up, and as you go through the rest of your day, it will go down, and melatonin starts to go up, which helps us to sleep. What you just said are kind of like the counter effects of cortisol, because there's ways that we can introduce cortisol into our life when it shouldn't be. And you're saying leading to obesity and all those things that you just stated. But anyway, carry on.
So so the graph would look like exactly like you described. It would spike I'm trying to do it backwards in case my screen is perfect. I don't know which way to go from. It's going to go up from about the time you're going to wake up. It's going to peak in the early hours of the day. And then throughout the day, it's going to start to taper down. And by evening, it should be getting very low and should be at its minimum during your sleep cycle. And when it starts to get dark and you start to get groggy or sleepy, especially if it actually is dark and you're not getting signaling to say, okay, it's still day, I'm not ready for sleep, but you will start to produce melatonin from your pineal gland.
Not in a pill form, not in a drink form. We produce melatonin naturally. That's where it started. People hear melatonin, they think of like back to the Flintstones, the Flintstone gummies. No, like it's in you. You're the one who makes it, right?
Makes it when it gets dark.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Things are working right, and so that should peak, probably near bedtime, and then you're going to drop into the sleep cycle, and you're going to go through various stages of sleep, some that have different purposes for your body. But you've tried to wake somebody from a deep versus a light stage of sleep, and they are not the same thing.
Right.
And so sleep quality is incredibly important, but a lot of my patients, when they come in, I will say, I'll talk to them about their daily physical activity. I'll talk to them about lighting in their room. I'll talk with them about ambient noise, talk to them about all sorts of things. Even eating right before bed will cause hormonal changes that will interfere with your ability to get into your sleep cycle. So Dr. Panda, the guy I was talking about, let me read off 6 things quickly that he referenced in his TED Talk. First, he talked about making sure you get 8 hours of sleep. I mean, we don't take this that seriously. I don't often get 8 hours of sleep
Right.
because I think, I have all this important stuff to do. But I freaking, watch TV shows with my wife and draw elephants and stuff like that. And I really, but, it's cost benefit, because when else am I going to spend time with my wife if it's not hanging out at night, just chatting or watching a TV show? So I got to do the math on that. But try and get 8 hours, right? Next one is give yourself an hour in the morning before you start eating. Shoving food down your fat face like I
Why is that?
don't do anymore. I think it's because your cortisol levels primarily haven't primed your body and your digestive tract to be ready to eat. And if you think about the evolutionary and lineage that we have, I don't imagine a bunch of our savanna living ancestors just like waking up and eating when they roll out of bed.
Oh yeah, they probably had to prepare their food. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can just pop it in the microwave, right? Or leftovers.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That didn't exist.
Pour a bowl of cereal, instant oatmeal. And so he talked about how it's much better for your digestion and in terms of insulin resistance. If you're becoming insulin resistant, pre-diabetic or diabetic, that is not a good thing to eat very first thing in the morning. And it's the funny thing is we grew up in an era where we're told breakfast is the most important meal of your day. You got to have a big meal, get your metabolism going. All this bullshit that I have a very sweet young lady who comes to see me, and she's probably pushing 400 pounds, and we're kind of devising a weight loss plan for her. And I mean, try as I might to fit in a ton of education in my visits. Like all I do is educate, which is probably a waste of time because there's just so many layers. It's not a waste of time, but it feels like it sometimes. There's so many layers of understanding to get stuff. But she comes back and tells me, she's like, well, I haven't been hungry, but I've been forcing myself to drink smoothies in the morning, and I'm just like,
Don't do it.
She started going for walks. She started doing a lot of really positive things. But I was just like, that is crazy that I saw you about weight loss and you still come back to me a month later saying you've been forcing yourself to drink a smoothie to get your metabolism going. Like I failed you that badly, or life and the education system failed. But point is, give it an hour, maybe more. I actually, and Panda likes the time restricted feeding model where you give yourself 8 to 10 hours, preferably less hours. And it's different for women than it is for men. I know the science is more.
I just learned about this last night. You're talking mainly about intermittent fasting, kind of.
Yeah.
A little bit. Okay.
But specifically for men, I think maybe we should do some more research before we make this generalization for women, because hormones are a bit different. And I don't understand it well enough off the top of my head. This
is literally what my wife told me last night, what you just said. The intermittent fasting is just a little bit better for men than women for the hormone reason. So that's for sure worth looking into.
See, I'm not insane.
Unless I'm surrounded by insane people, which is possible.
But so give yourself 8 hours to eat all your calories. I used to be really great at this. Life's been more stressful. Cortisol makes me want to eat more. But typically, I don't eat anything on work days until noon. I get up, I will have some coffee or something like that, maybe pre-workout and water, but I don't eat actual food. And in the beginning, you're like, but I'm hungry in the mornings. No, that's just hunger signaling because you're programmed to eat in the mornings and your body is accustomed to it. You ignore that for a couple of weeks and you're not going to get those hunger signals anymore, especially if you have some tea or some coffee or something like that is an appetite suppressant. Those signals won't come down the pipeline and you'll just start to get hungry around 11, noon. Sometimes I'm not even hungry at that time. And I'll still eat because I know if I don't, I'll get 2 more hours into work and I'll be hating life.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I just get going, after a workout or whatever in the morning, and I log on and start plugging away, and I look at the clock and it's 11. I'm like, I'm not hungry. I have water. I always make sure to drink a lot of water. I'm pretty good at it, but yeah, it's interesting. because it wasn't that way. And I'm not like losing weight or anything. Yeah, I feel healthy. I feel good. Yeah, it's interesting. And I'm not doing it on purpose, but I might start doing that on purpose more. See what it does.
And
see what it tastes like.
I might reconsider. So he makes another point. You thought that was pretty funny, dude. You're still great. I've had like wrong guidance for a month, so sorry if I start hacking when I laugh. But there's a couple more things, and one of those ties into what you just said. Well, a thought that came from what you just said. Daily exercise. He talked about the importance of daily exercise and optimizing your circadian rhythm, and how he actually said for the purposes of insulin resistance, especially our pre-diabetic or diabetic listeners or individuals or my patients, he recommends afternoon or evening exercises. And I think it has something to do with our hormones and how our muscles are most efficient in the afternoon and evening hours rather than the morning hours. And I don't remember the science. He broke it down on that TED Talk that I read. And we should try and link it in the description. But I get up and I drink something to give me some energy at freaking early hours in the morning. And that's obviously better than nothing. But it would be nice if I could find a way to do some afternoon, evening exercise. My schedule might not permit that. But if your schedule does permit it and you can do either, that might be better for the individual.
Yeah. So I've heard the opposite, working out late at night is not good. I guess late at night. Yeah. You're going to spike those cortisol. Not going to help you recover well, but yeah, maybe the afternoon.
I would guess he's probably saying the hours from 11 to 6. Between those hours is probably when you're most efficient for your exercise.
Cool.
And then there's maybe one or two more things. Oh, no food right before bed. We already talked about that. He talked about getting 30 to 60 minutes of direct sunlight each day. I mean, you think you can't do that, but you do have a lunch break at work. You could go for a 30-minute walk. And you could take your sunglasses off and let the sun hit your face. Yeah. Even if it's cloudy, you're still getting
worth it. Yeah.
And
people, they make good coats. You can walk around in the cold.
Yeah. Gloves, all of it. Wear thermals, put an extra pair of pants on. Yeah, I know. My patients are just like, a lot of them are from Central and South America, and they're just not with the cold, dude.
Oh my gosh. Well, let me just say this. So I used to be really, really good. We've got this very lazy bulldog, Bubba, and I try and give him a little love every day and take him on a walk. And I'm like, oh, it's good. Let's go outside. I work from home a lot. Let's go outside, get some fresh air. Even though a lot of the air is inversion, but we're kind of tucked away in a different mountain range, so it's good air. But I always make a point to bring my kids with me too. And I've got this leash that like wraps around my waist. I've got like the double stroller. I got kid, like it is a lot of multitasking, and it's maybe 10, 15 minutes. Maybe we should push it even further. But dude, they love it. Like they love being outside. Like if you're thinking, oh, my kid's going to be cold, like kids don't know they're cold until you tell them they're cold. They could be walking around in soggy shoes. No, dude, they just want to go outside and stomp around. But like I should probably make that more of an effort. But you get outside and the sun. If you're out in the office, do a lap around the building. Whatever. It's good.
Yeah, and so getting that sun exposure each day can fix if you have some. And like me, my typical work day, I get to the office at the 6 o'clock, in the 6 o'clock hour before 7 o'clock. And I won't leave sometimes till 6 or 7. And it's dark in Utah this time of year when I get there and when I leave. And if I don't, and lots of times I have to, do crap during lunch. And so I don't get to see the sun. And so the days I can, and I go outside, man, I get euphoria. I walk outside and I'm just like, this is what life's supposed to feel like. And
you've been in a cage all day.
Oh my gosh, feeling amazing. And if we can do that, not for the benefit of feeling great, but because it actually might resynchronize that circadian rhythm. Because otherwise, how are we supposed to do it?
Yeah.
And there's one more little factoid that I wanted to throw in is that individuals who are in the more common sense blind, and I guess I don't understand the complete science about what's happening in the retina that makes the most common forms of blindness occur, but there is a specific type of cell that isn't affected in those individuals, that they have the same circadian hormones that are affected by the sunlight that we do. And they will jump to a different time zone with me and you. The light cycle will change and their circadian will adapt as quickly as yours and I.
Even though they can't see the light and take it in through the receptor system.
They're getting some sort of receptor in their eye that isn't the one that's visual, telling them what to create in their occipital lobe, but they're still affected by light, and it's just so it's so potent, so powerful. So I think this is an important part of our understanding of light, even as it's not that closely related to fire, but I'm sure we can tie it back to it. But yeah, that's pretty much what I have. It's pretty much what I have from.
Yeah, that's a cool. I'm gonna have to check out that talk, and we'll if we're stalwart podcast hosts, we'll include a link to that. That sounds, yeah. Okay, I just want to take a second. If you're listening to this podcast, if you made it this far, congratulations.
Thank you.
We
actually appreciate you listening. That is very, hopefully this isn't a complete waste of your workout sesh.
But just stop for a second. If you're in the car, workout session, whatever, just stop and think about what we've gathered information from other sources. We've talked about, I think this is our third podcast, but this has by far been one of my favorite conversations I've ever had with another human. I love this. It's awesome. It's super fascinating. But think about it. We have all these health problems, and we've got a PA here on the podcast. He's talking about these instances of what he's recommending to certain people. And I have yet to find something where the health of the current human species is not aligned with the rhythm that we should be in. And this rhythm was developed by our ancestors for years and years and refined, and it was so consistent, it seemed. And everything that is killing people far too early, or giving people not a beneficial life here on Earth, it's a lot of it is becoming from this rhythm. The phones in their face, and the sleep and the recovery, and the cortisol and the stress. Stress kills. You hear that all the time. It really does. You add that up, and these practices, get back in touch with your primal nature. Get back in touch with this. Don't be in such a hustle and bustle. Take your time, hunt for your food in the morning and prepare it, metaphorically speaking. Take your time before you consume the food, and during your high cortisol times, take advantage of it. The physical activity, the creative activity, and as you wind down, reflect, gather, meditate, and recover, and hit it again the next day. This is health. And they weren't I think that people often look at cavemen, right, and think they're just so easy. A caveman can do it, seen as bad, but I think they were geniuses and they had it right. And I would say that human history kind of peaked back then, and we're trying to get back to that. And that's what this whole podcast is about. So please just stop. Human health. Sorry, what did I say?
You said human history, but I'm guessing you mostly mean human health.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is stop and think about that. Let that set in. That's pretty amazing. All these professionals, they're all trying to get back to where we were, suggesting
when we
things.
Just didn't have anything.
And so all these introductions of different things, light and offices, and but not being outside for 30 minutes a day, it can help you be healthy, but it's like, we're so far off from that. And I'm not saying we're going to get back to that, but
Yeah.
it shows that it helps. So,
and I think one disagreement people might have is just like, oh, what about all the data we have on lifespans and how they're continuing to climb? That is not the same thing as health. And I think if you spend 2 minutes searching Google on what health means and why lifespans were reported as different, you'll understand that lifespans, were shorter because so many people were dying, giving birth to children and being birthed as children. And once you get an infection or have a cut, you don't survive in that environment. But in terms of atherosclerotic plaque, atherosclerotic disease in the valves of in the arteries of your heart, it didn't exist. In the Hadza tribe that everybody likes to talk about, their organ systems are money, healthy as can be, right? There's people that
elite.
are in their 80s, 90s, zipping around, jogging, hopping, that are really thriving, and then their health just goes and it tanks, and they die within days or weeks of their health collapsing. And unlike us, where we start dying at age 60,
us meaning 45, Americans,
when we have our first heart attack at 45 or 38, and then it's like this medication, this intervention, this catheterization, and it's like our death is as long as is half of our entire lifespan in America, in some instances, in a lot of my patients' instances.
Yeah,
that is just sucky, but
horrible.
But it's a modern problem with modern environments. The ways we used to die were natural ways, and not the way we're thinking about health.
If I can say on that, you often hear, please like, comment, subscribe. Like, truly share this with somebody. Really do. There are a lot of people, and I hope that maybe some people in my life will check this out and might spark, like, that's why we're doing a lot of this. Yeah, we have fun, but like we've talked about it before, spark some sort of change, get more in tune. So yeah, please don't be ashamed to share that around. I think on that note, I'm going to share a couple things, if you're okay, about so what do we do? What do we do in this day and age? Lights. I'm in a room right now. It's 10:36 p.m. where I'm at. The sun's been down for hours, and I've got these lights around. I've got these devices, permitting blue light, and it's not natural. I'm not in my rhythm. Technically, there's a lot that I should be doing better. But how do you do it? Yeah. But how do you live in this world and also get in rhythm? It's impossible, Paul Casey, it's impossible. How could I do it? There's some things you could do. For instance, I've got monitors in front of me, my phone. Put some filters on your phone. Like it's all built in. You just have to make it more orangey or reddy. And it's more natural. It's gonna be more so not blue light. It's gonna be more so natural tones of light. And I have that on all day long. I had a coworker, I go into the office and I have my screen set up, and people are like, oh my gosh, I can't see. How do you look at that? That's horrible. And I had somebody on my team was like, why do you do that? And I told him, and I said, I used to get really bad headaches and eye strain, and I thought that it was really important from what I was reading to, turn these filters on. Maybe it could help. Like, obviously it's not ideal still, but maybe it could help. And I don't get them anymore. Maybe every now and then, and I'll put some blue light glasses on. But this coworker started doing it, and he said it took a minute or two to adjust, but same thing with him. He was just not getting the eye strain and the headaches anymore, which is really cool. So I do that. There's a lot of technology folks out there. Do that with your screens. Like be weird, be different. Just get back into that rhythm. I would say also in your home, if you can introduce lighting that's, not so bright, a little bit more warm light is going to be good. Let's see. Yeah, follow the rhythm of the sun. I think it's harder, you know. I like to watch a lot of folks hunting in Alaska and thinking about the rhythm of the sun up there, way above the equator is far different. However, one thing that we've gotten good at is when we go to bed, like we put our phones on the counter downstairs in the kitchen. Why do you need your phone? Like I know that I used to have my phone right on my bedside, and right when I wake up, I put it in my face, and that's the sun coming up to me. Cortisol levels ready to go, you know, and then I, you know, maybe put it down and go back to sleep. What kind of rhythm is that? You know, are you really getting the recovery you think? Is that sleep even worth it? You don't need your phone around. You don't need the alerts, the sounds, the light. Put it away. Um, it's not likely someone's going to have something happen in the middle of the night. Put your ringer on loud and you'll hear it go off if an emergency happens. But separate yourself when the sun goes down. Put your sun down, put your light down, dim things. Also, the next thing, Casey, you shared something with me on Instagram about the candlelight around the dinner, and I was like, that's cool. I want to try that out. And I did for a few nights. Long story short, we don't do it every night, but I did it for a few nights, and just to see my kids, how they would interact. And it was very dark. We just had two, you know, candles, and we were just so focused at looking at the candle, and it almost kind of like sucked us in.
Yeah.
And like we're connecting more, and we're talking, and and we're eating, and we're not worried about, you know, what the food looks like and all that. Is this chicken nuggets or not? I need more ketchup, all this stuff. Like we're just like communing, and it was really cool to see. And then, you know, the next night it was like a total crapshoot, and it didn't work out.
There's people at the door. Oh,
yeah.
With the next candle night attempt.
Oh yeah, the next candlelight dinner, like it didn't work out.
The house starts on fire.
Oh yeah, but it just, you know, but little things, like try things out, man. Just experiment. So I think that's. Do you have anything to say on that?
No, other than I saw that and it was just like, oh, duh, you know, like that is how we should eat, and it should be brought in. It should be intimate. This was something you alluded to at the beginning, how it was like you kind of wanted me to talk about a theory of what fire does.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and so my thought was that it is like modern dieting techniques and how a lot of different diets will work, you know, whether it's carnivore, keto, or paleo, or vegan.
To be clear, this is your fire exposure theory.
Yeah, this is my fire exposure theory.
Okay, continue.
This is just as a lot of my modern diets work, not because they bring in just the right amount of nutrients, but because they eliminate the option to eat Oreos and Cheetos and mashed potatoes every day and hash browns with ketchup, some other, you know, probably things that each of us, like so many people are going to hear me say those things. Dang it, punch in air, you know, because I ate every one of those things today. But it's the fact that you're getting things out of your diet that is making them work. It's not what you have in it. It's what you've gotten out.
Taking out of it.
I think the same thing applies with fire exposure. If you dim all the lights or shut the lights off and you light a candle and you eat dinner around that, it's the things you're getting out of your perceptive environment that is bringing you that intimate, healthy, engaging interaction with the fire and those around you. Yeah. And that was probably the same thing that happened. Well, I mean, same thing that happens with you and me around a campfire. We're not worried about what boat's driving up the shoreline. We're not worried about, oh, are there deer still coming out on that hillside because it's light and we're hunting. It's like the only thing we can see is the other person's face and the fire, and there's no other distractors. And
our senses are just honed in.
Yeah. And so fire might have been just as much about eliminating other distractors because it pulls you in to this really focused, narrow environment where you really can engage with the fire and you can stick your little prod in there and flip over some coals. Or and you can look over and you can talk to somebody. And I think that's a really healthy thing. And I don't know how we do that in the modern context without a fire or a setting or a candlelight dinner. But candlelight dinner, dude, that's when people love candlelight dinners. Hey, that and the Flintstones.
All along, man, they were fooling us. Yeah, I love that. I love that theory quite a bit. Yeah, I can get behind that. I'm going to add one more plug in here. Red light therapy. That's kind of new. Probably seen more so as like, okay, freaking hippie. Well, you're going to do that. I think a lot of people are familiar with red light therapy to make your skin look young again, which it's interesting. But so my wife, she's got a certain autoimmune disease, and she ordered this red light at home device. It's called a Lume box, Lume box. And there was this study. I'll just briefly mention it, and we can probably have our last call and then maybe a shameless shout out and get out of here. Does that sound good with you?
Yeah.
Okay, but I did want to share this study about red light therapy. If we're wise, we'll also include this in here. But basically, this study, it's called a controlled trial to determine the efficacy of red and near infrared light treatment in patient satisfaction, reduction of fine lines, wrinkles, skin roughness, and intradermal collagen density increase. Long title. This is from, I believe, Alexander Wunsch and Karsten Matuszka. Anyway, I thought it
trustworthy. Rigorous scientist.
It was interesting, but basically the study investigated the effects of red light therapy on skin aging and wound healing. They found that the red light therapy improved skin elasticity, collagen synthesis, and antioxidant activity, as well as accelerated wound closure. And so why am I talking about red light therapy? Well, it's a warm light, it's natural light, maybe mimicking the sun. When I read books to my kids at night, we'll turn on this red light. It's a natural light, and kind of like help us go to bed rather than turning the lights on. It just helps us like ease into it. But you put that light right on your face or whatever, and there's been these studies that are helping with the elasticity, collagen, antioxidant activity, and those accelerated wound closure. So yeah, shout out there. There's probably a lot of different devices, but Lumebox, yeah, it's a little bit pricey, but it's kind of interesting using that in our lives. It's been cool to have around. I probably should use it more, but anyway, any thoughts on that one?
No, I'm interested. I'll have to look at that to figure out just how much exposure time-wise is required to get that sort of skin health benefit,
Yeah, this Lume box, it only goes for 12 minutes. It'll shut off. You can't you can go for less and turn it off yourself, but you can't go more. Just do 12 minutes at times, really. There's probably got to be something behind that.
Okay. Well, yeah, I want to look into that science because I have friends who are kind of biohackers who have been doing that for some time. And yeah, I've never really taken it that seriously, but looking at all the conversation we've had about all these different types of light wavelengths, and what they've done, yeah, we should take seriously that particular light wavelength and see what the science shows. And do we need to be exposed to it? Is it something that we naturally would have been exposed to in the ancient context that we aren't being exposed to from lack of sun exposure, and we're just concentrating that into a burst in the evenings? Yeah, I'm about it if it is something that we're missing. But yeah, very much interested in that now.
Yeah. I love this conversation. It's been great. We want to bring conversations like this to you all. I think if you don't mind, Casey, I'll go first with kind of our last call, maybe some thoughts we had during our conversations we didn't get a touch on. Because I have our shameless shout out tonight. So I'll go, you go, and then I'll finish it off. But a thought that I had earlier when you had my gears turning was keeping the light alive, these early humans, some go out, and then there's some that are designated to keep these embers going. And that made me really think about, what embers are you keeping going in your life? It's obviously this, these smartphones. This is the ember. I'm keeping it. If I look at how many times I've looked at this thing today, picked it up, and my screen time, it's horrendous. And I really try not to, but this is the ember that I'm keeping going in my life. I'm checking in on it. And, I think that's a problem. And I had that thought, as fire is central to those early humans that are around it all day, keeping it alive. I feel like far too often, a majority of us humans, we have this blue light, this artificial light. That's what we're keeping alive and surrounding ourselves with all day long. And from what we've talked about in the studies we've shared, that's not right, man. That's not how we should be doing it. We should be more mindful of that and introduce a more natural kind of rhythm and inputs there. So that was my last call, as well as this is just kind of artsy fartsy weird, but we hunt, and a lot of times in environments when there's a burn, a natural fire that will happen, it's horrible. It kills all the feed in the forest, but people, biologists, ecologists, they will purposefully do these burns, these controlled burns, to then, after the fire, there's this new growth that comes, and it's abundant. And these animals and these bears and deer and elk, they just gravitate towards the feed. Is so good, And a lot of hunters will pinpoint those burns, but I kind of just thought, what burn do you need to put in your life to give that new growth, that ecological new growth, to bring this new feed into your life to rejuvenate? Maybe there is this burn in that you need to have. And maybe that's your fire exposure therapy, taking things out. Maybe it's putting something in, but that's just kind of a whimsical thought that I had. Maybe someone would appreciate that, but anyway, I'll hand it off to you.
Okay. Yeah. And, that's a really good thought. And I think a lot of people don't understand that about fires and burns in the natural environment. Sorry, I got kids waking up, too much blue light in the room. I was really thinking he has a little bit of a night light thing in there. It's kind of a purple. It's pretty close to red, but it's also kind of close to blue, right? It's stressing me out during the end of the podcast. I think I didn't sleep that well. But anyway, I was just thinking of the initial thought that you were having. Keeping the ember going. I mean, you could turn that into more of a metaphor as well for our personal lives. And I think we really do need to tend to the things frequently that bring us the best, increase our chances the most of thriving as human beings. And I think that's what embers had done for our ancestors. They took especially before they knew how to make a fire, they probably took very good care of fire when they encountered it. And I think if we can identify the things that bring us satisfaction, joy, health, wellness, and we can say, okay, I don't know everything about my life and what's supposed to be happening, but I know these few things are keeping me alive and are keeping the fire going and keeping me warm at night. So I'm going to make sure I check on those. And I think, this is a world of distraction, opportunity, and that is beautiful. But sometimes, we kind of neglect what metaphorically you could call embers that we may, that might really be bringing us the health and thriving we're looking for at the end of the day. So that's probably my last thought.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Be more purposeful for that. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about a lot of things. Thank you for coming prepared and sharing, those instances with your professional experience. I think that's very helpful for a lot of folks. It's been a wildly successful podcast, regardless of how it performs metrically. I feel like it's just been so good. I'll probably forever refer back to this one. I will say, I do have a shameless shout out, so a little bit of fun. I'm really excited about this. I don't own this myself, but this has probably been something that I'm just so excited to get when it comes time to purchasing one. But you've heard of these smokeless fire pits, right? Solo Stove is a common company. There's also a company called Brio, Breo. I like them quite a bit. And I've been thinking about cooking meat over an open flame for a while. Not a griddle like I've mentioned before, or a grill, propane gas, wood and meat and fire like that, primal. But how do you put this modern twist on it? So Brio, I really like what they've done. They've got, I think fundamentally, they've got an X series and a Y series. From what I understand, the X series more stays at home, but this Y series is so cool. It's got a little handle on it where you can, carry it from the truck to the base camp or to the beach or to wherever, pretty light. And it's got these little plugs where you can put this, like, they call it that outpost grill. And it's this, like, basically this long metal, pole. And they have this grilling plate that you can lower down and raise up when you want to do different degrees of cooking, and you can put your meat over it, and you could also not cook over it and just have, like the smokeless fire pit. A lot of people like it so they don't smell like smoke. I like to smell like smoke. My wife doesn't. A lot of people don't. I think that's a shame, but whatever. But anyway, it just, like, I think what they've done there is made a fire more of a modern thing, and I think it's a healthy thing, and also connecting with your food that way. It's a primal thing, and man, I'm excited to be cooking over a flame when I get one. I've done some research, and I just think you can extend it to different heights, and you can, use all certain types of wood, and it has like this afterburn that burns the smoke. I'm really geeking out about it, but I think it's a phenomenal product. So the Brio Y series in particular, it's pretty cool.
Okay, Brio, you heard it here. If you don't
Yeah.
come up, he will.
We gotta get
product review video.
Oh my, yeah.
So cool, man. Yeah, I'm looking at them right now online. Those look awesome.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. All right, man. Yeah, we spent a lot of time. Appreciate you being on the podcast. Anything to say to our listeners before we close it out?
No, I mean, yeah. If you stuck with us, we really appreciate the support. We hope that you gather something from this that can improve your life and help you thrive. That is really kind of the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, folks, wherever you are, have a good day, have a good night, and thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Turn off those lights.